Morning, everyone. We are up to Parak Daled Mishna Beis, and there are a number of ways of learning this Mishnah. We're just going to go through one of them. Mi shayu peireisa b'magura, person who had produce in a storeroom. V'nasan sa'ala ben Levi u'sa'ala ani, and he gave a sa'ah, which is a dry measure of grain, a dry measure. Gave a sa'ah to a Levi, and a sa'ah u'sa'ala ani, and a sa'ah to a poor man. Now we know that from what we separate from our produce every year, we give the truma to the Kohen. The first meiser goes to the Levi. The second meiser, depending on the year of the Shemitah cycle, either goes to Yerushalayim for you, the owner, to eat, or to redeem it onto money, take the money to Yerushalayim to eat, or it's given to the poor. So in this case, we're talking about where you are separating truma, and you're giving a sa'ah to the Levi, separating meiser, and you are giving a sa'ah, one sa'ah to the Levi, one sa'ah to the poor person. Mafrish at shmeina sa'in va'echlan. You can separate up to 8 sa'ah and eat them. Divi Rebbe Meir, these are the words of Rebbe Meir. What's going on is like this. This person has a big storehouse of grain. Takes out one sa'ah and he gives it to the Levi. Now, this storehouse of grain is tevel. It's tevel. It needs the maestros to be separated from it. And this person takes one sa'ah of tevel, gives it to the Levi as meiser. He gives another sa'ah to the poor man to take care of meiserani. Now, if we think about it, we know that meiser is 1/10. Meaning you have grain. You give first you give the truma gedayla to the Kohen. The first truma goes to the Kohen, and then from the rest of the grain you take 1/10 and you give it to the Levi. Okay. Now what remains after the 10th that goes to the Levi goes another 10th of that to the poor man. So the Mishnah says he gave a sa'ah to a Levi and a sa'ah to a poor man. So how many sa'ah can that fix? Because maestros was taken from it. What would have been the total, so to speak? If I go ahead and I take a sa'ah for the Levi as a 10th, and then I give another sa'ah for the ani. So if I start off with taking one sa'ah as a 10th, that means it's covering another 9 bushels, another 9 sa'ah. And then from that leftover 9, I had to take 1/10 of that and give it to the poor man. And then after that, I'm left with the other 8 or so that I can eat. So even though the Mishnah uses says a sa'ah for the Levi and a sa'ah for the ani, it's just rounding things off. It's really sa'ah for the Levi and a bit less than a sa'ah for the poor man. And you come out with a little bit more than 8 sa'ah left for yourself to eat. But the Mishnah says, if I do this, I go ahead and I give one sa'ah to the Levi, and another sa'ah to the ani. So now I can go ahead, separate 8 sa'ah and eat. Now, in this case, when you gave the meiser, you had not have yet separated the other. It's not like the case here is not I separated 10 sa'ah and then I started dividing up. It's not what happened. I had a storehouse. And I took out a sa'ah for meiser and another sa'ah for meiser ani. And I know that now within this storehouse, within this whole storehouse of grain, 8 sa'ah are now edible. But I didn't separate it yet. So according to the way the Bartanura learns this case, is that what's happening is that this person who is now giving one sa'ah to the poor man, another sa'ah to the Levi, he is not actually affecting truma at that point of time. Rather, he's giving each one a sa'ah, and each sa'ah will become meiser once he separates the 8 that he wants to eat. Doesn't want it to happen before, because then it becomes problematic. Which 8 is it? If I already separated truma and meiser, and I already actually gave the meisers who they have to go to. So now 8 is fixed. Which 8 is it? So in essence, to stay out of that issue, what's happening here is that This person is giving what's going to be Meiser to the Levi, what's going to be Meiser Ani to the Ani, but it's not going to actually become the Meiser until he takes out the 8 that he plans on eating that would be fixed by these 2 sa'ah. So what's the issue? The issue is the following. The issue is that the case is that I gave the sa'ah to the Levi, I gave the sa'ah to the poor man. Now, in order for me now to be able for that maasros to come into effect and to fix my grain, it's got to be around. Has to be present. If somehow or another I gave the Levi his sa'ah and somebody grabbed it away from him and he got lost, and somebody grabbed it and took it away from him, or somehow or another he dropped it all in the river and it all washed away, then I got to start all over again, because the Meiser never took effect. It never took effect by the time I separated the other 8. So in this case, what happened is that, I gave the sa'ah to the Levi, gave the sa'ah to the poor man. And again, each one sa'ah was not supposed to come Meiser until I separate the 8. And then they all left. They went away. The poor man and the Levi, they left. So now I don't have what was supposed to be the Meiser in front, what was actually supposed to be the Meiser, I don't have it in front of me. Now, not being in front of me is not a problem in itself. But how do I know how much of it is left? Maybe he lost it. Maybe if we're talking about an Am Ba'aretz, someone who's an ignorant and not careful about Meiser anyway, maybe he ate it. How am I supposed to now separate 8? Because if I separate 8, that means I'm assuming that what I gave to these 2 people are still in existence. That when I separate the 8, I can say, okay, what they have is Meiser and this is all fixed. But how do I know that the full amount that they gave them is still around to say that when they become Meiser, they can fix all these 8? Maybe it's less than 8 by now. It's all proportionate to the Meiser. It's not good. It's all proportionate to whatever the Meiser takes effect on, whatever the amount of grain that the Meiser takes effect on. So another 8 of those are going to be permissible, but not more than that. So the issue here is when they both basically disappear on me, can I assume that what I gave them is still whole, and therefore I just take the 8 that I planned on it based on what I gave them, or am I stuck? Maybe I can only separate according to what I actually determine is left, meaning I have to go and find them, see how much of it is left, and based on that, I can go ahead and now separate what's fixed. So the first opinion of the Mishnah, which is Reb Meir, says, Mafresh ad shmoyne se'in v'eichlan, you can separate up to 8 sa'ah and eat them. There is a Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir is basically saying you gave each one a sa'ah. You can assume that those sa'ah are both around. After all, the sa'ah you gave each one is not Meiser, it's Tevel. Because it doesn't become Meiser until you separate the other 8. So it's Tevel. To start concerning that maybe he ate it, it's Tevel. Maybe even if he's an Am Haaretz, he's ignorant and not careful of the laws of Meiser. Maybe you still don't have to go in and be suspicious that he's going to eat it. Most, when we learned the law of Demai, which is when you buy grain from a person who's ignorant and not careful of the laws of Meiser, you have to tithe it yourself. The majority of the ignorant people still take off Meiser. They do the tenth, not just the trimmer. They do everything. So whatever it may be, and perhaps he lost it. And again, if he lost it, he's left with nothing. So do we have to go ahead and be afraid that if he lost it, then again, it's his loss. Would it make sense to say that with these people are going to be careful and watch it until they can assume that things have been taken care of? So Reb Meir says yes. The Chachamim say, one can only separate according to the amount of what he knows is left. According to the Chachamim, you cannot just rely and assume that what they took is still complete. You have to go and determine that. You've got to go and you have to ascertain, is it around? You got to go and see, do they have it? If the person is trusted trusted regarding the laws of Meiser, he's not Amaris, an ignorant person who is an ignorant person we have to suspect isn't careful with Meiser. But if he's an ignorant person, were you to ask him, is it still around? And he were to say yes, perhaps you can't believe him. But if, let's say, he's a person who is trusted in Maasros, and you ask him, it's still around, and he says yes, you can believe him. But either way, you're going to have to determine how much of it is left, because only according to how much it is left can you now separate based on that. So the mayor says you can go ahead and assume. The Chachamim say you cannot assume. Once they leave, you cannot assume. Maybe he lost it, maybe he ate it, and therefore you cannot separate. You can only separate the amount based on how much you determine is left, and we follow the opinion of the Chachamim. Okay. Okay, next to mitzvah. Prohibition against uncovering the nakedness of one's father through a homosexual act. Shenema, as the pasuk states, the nakedness of your father you shall not reveal, meaning not do any kind of form of intimacy with one's father, which would mean a homosexual act. This is a prohibition in addition to the regular prohibition of performing a homosexual act. To do that on one's father is a separate and additional prohibition. When he transgresses this, and he is intimate with his father through the intromission of the corona, with witnesses and with warning, they're both liable to stoning. Without witnesses, b'mezid, and intentionally chayavim kares, they be liable to divine to what we call divine severance of existence. B'shoigig, and if it's not intentional, didn't know it was wrong. Chayav shtei chatois, in that situation, a person will be liable to 2 sin offerings: one for this prohibition about doing such an act with one's father, and the other for just doing that act. This applies in all places and at all times. Have a great day.